You're listening to Motherhood in Between, the show for moms who want to rebuild their bodies, reclaim their energy, and keep pursuing the lives they're called to during the season between babies. I'm your host, Lauran Saunders, registered dietitian, mom of 2 and counting, and founder of Nourished Moms Collective. I help moms recover from their last pregnancy, prepare for their next one, and support their bodies and ambitions in the in-between season of motherhood. Because motherhood shouldn't mean depletion, and your dreams don't disappear when you become a mom. So whether you're rebuilding your health, rediscovering your identity, or growing something meaningful alongside your family, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Everyone talks about when to start trying again, but almost no one talks about whether your body is actually ready to start trying for another baby. And today I'm going to walk you through the signs that I look for in myself and in my clients in Nourished Moms Collective before adding another pregnancy into the mix. These are the things that we want to see. And this is really important because getting pregnant isn't just about timing on a calendar. And if you listened to last week's episode, that was all about pregnancy spacing. But your readiness for another pregnancy is physical, it is hormonal, and it's often emotional and mental. And skipping this little check-in is how many moms actually end up super depleted before they even start another pregnancy, which then compounds in that pregnancy, and it really shapes how they feel in that pregnancy and how that subsequent postpartum phase goes. And oftentimes we continue to carry that with us. If you want more pregnancies in the future, the depletion tends to just compound. So one of the first signs that I like to look at is your menstrual cycle regularity. And this is often referred to as like our 5th vital sign. We have, your blood pressure, your heart rate, your respiratory rate, your body temperature. Those are all pretty good signs of what's going on with your total body health. When we throw in your menstrual cycle regularity, that can be really helpful because if you have a regular menstrual cycle, that's a pretty strong data point. It's not the only one that we base things off of, but if you are ovulating, if you have a good luteal phase, if you have good fertile signs, that's a fairly good indicator that your body's probably ready for another pregnancy. Now, like I said, that is not the only indicator. In fact, I know many women who actually have completely regular cycles and they still struggle to conceive. So that cycle regularity isn't really a guarantee. In fact, I had a client who was diagnosed with unexplained infertility, went through 6 rounds of IUI to get pregnant the first time. They couldn't figure out why she wasn't getting pregnant. She had a totally normal menstrual cycle, but it took 2 years trying for her first baby. All her other labs looked fine. Flash forward to her wanting to start getting pregnant with her second baby, wanted to start trying to conceive. Her fertility clinic was booked out for 3 months, so she came to me in the meantime to see what she could do to optimize her body. And yes, she had a strong menstrual cycle, but we were starting to optimize her body's foundation, supporting her minerals, her blood sugar, her stress, and she actually conceived naturally within those 3 months. All this is to say that there can still be things going on even if you do have a regular menstrual cycle. Your body still might not quite be ready to conceive again. So another thing that we like to look at, your nutrition and metabolic health. And this is where some standard lab testing can come in handy. And I will say knowing the optimal values for standard tests, not just, what's within the reference range and doesn't flag on, an iron panel. So looking at iron, that's for sure going to be one. Looking at your vitamin D status, that's going to be one. Supporting your blood sugar stability. And if you are having stable blood sugars throughout the day, you're not dealing with dips and crashes and highs and lows. And then, of course, one of my favorite nutritional markers is going to be your mineral status, because that is truly looking at your body's cellular foundation and how depleted you are at that cellular level, which tends to leach into our menstrual cycle health, our thyroid health, our energy, our nervous system, our metabolism. A lot of that starts at that mineral level. This is another area where someone actually might have a totally normal menstrual cycle, but there might be some of these nutritional and metabolic health markers that are a little bit off. that can still be holding their body back from being ready for another pregnancy. Another sign that I like to look for on whether or not your body is ready is your energy. Do you have stable energy throughout the day? Because if you're dealing with chronic exhaustion or just feeling completely burnt out day in and day out, that is a signal that your body is under stress. And with our energy, I like to look at your nervous system capacity and kind of your emotional stability. Those tend to go a little bit hand in hand. If our body is under a lot of stress, it's going to have a really hard time expanding your nervous system capacity. It's going to have a really hard time regulating your emotions and your mood. And it has a really hard time signaling safety to your body. And your body loves to feel safe in order to want to grow a small, tiny human in your body. It's trying to create an ideal environment for a baby to grow. And if we are chronically living in fight or flight and we're exhausted and we're burnt out, that is not a really great signal that our body gets. Nervous system regulation, it is a fertility factor. It's not just something that is nice to focus on when you're going through not so stressful seasons of life, but it truly is something that I think if you hone in on your nervous system regulation, this could be a little bit of a superpower, I think, for moms. A, with creating that safety in your body, but B, just being a nicer, more fun mom that actually enjoys her children. So we want you to have some nervous system regulation to help with that emotional stability and with your actual energy in your body. Now, another sign that I look for when it comes to being ready for another pregnancy is your physical healing. So that can be literal healing from your past pregnancy, especially, if you had a C-section, are you within 6 months of that C-section, or, traumatic birth, anything like that. But also additional major physical events or injuries, that's going to have an impact on your body, signaling stress to your body, and again, signaling that we're not really safe right now, let's not prioritize making a baby. For myself personally, actually, after I had my first baby, at 6 months postpartum, I was dealing with a lot of kidney stone issues, and I ended up going through a procedure to get that all removed, and it was not fun. I was 6 months postpartum, I was breastfeeding, and my body felt like it was going through the ringer. Honestly, I think that was more painful than my C-section recovery, if I'm being completely honest here. But that's an example where my body most definitely needed time to heal after that. Had I been trying to get pregnant at 6 months postpartum, it would not have gone over very well. And actually, I wasn't planning to share this, but I just remembered it. So while I was preparing for this third pregnancy and I had done all of my testing, I had a pretty robust supplement protocol to help with healing my gut, supporting my minerals, all the things. And something that can often happen when you start a healing protocol like that is what we call die-off. And that is basically kind of like an exacerbation of symptoms where you kind of feel really crappy before you feel better. And I was experiencing die-off. And for me, I was really nauseated. I was so fatigued in the afternoon. And that was honestly my first sign that something was not normal, is because I was getting so fatigued in the afternoon, really nauseated. I had such a hard time just keeping my eyes open, and I was ready for bed by 8 p.m. And I started getting some headaches. And again, like I said, this is a natural reaction that your body can go through as it is kind of detoxing and cleaning out your gut, as it is rebalancing everything. It is a normal reaction, and it's also a sign that your body needs a little bit of detox help. And for many people, it is just something you need to kind of get through so you can get to the other side where you're going to feel infinitely better, which was the case for me. Now, during that time, while I was going through all of this, we were not preventing getting pregnant, but I know for a fact that would not have been a good implantation environment, uterine environment for my body to implant, because I was under so much stress. My body was under a lot of stress, experiencing that die-off reaction. And truly, I kind of felt like I was in my first trimester with all of the symptoms that I was experiencing, but without, the baby at the end of the tunnel. And after a couple of weeks of experiencing that, my body worked through it. Things were totally fine. It truly is a temporary reaction that can happen. But I know that I definitely could not conceive during that time because my body did not feel safe. It was under so much stress during that. Another sign that your body is ready for another pregnancy, I truly, truly, truly believe that you have your mother's intuition and you can do a little bit of a gut check. Because there's, of course, going to be some sense of uncertainty about a big life change, like having a baby. Of course, we don't know what that's going to look like. We might feel a little bit anxious about the timeline while you're trying to conceive. A little bit of uncertainty is normal. And I think there is an intuitive not yet that moms can feel. And I think if maybe you're like, I don't know what I'm experiencing, if you kind of sit and ponder with that for a little bit, I think you'll know. Is it just that I'm nervous because our whole life is going to change when we add another baby? Or is it truly an intuitive, not quite yet, you're not quite ready yet. Your family's not quite ready yet. I think as moms, we can follow that intuition. And I think oftentimes we might have a feeling of like we're just being pulled toward having another baby. Like I think there's baby fever, and we all like to talk and joke about baby fever every time you hold a newborn. But I think there's like real baby fever when you feel like, okay, yes, I think we're ready for another one of these little humans, versus some real hesitation. And I think honing in to your intuition, your mother's intuition, can help determine which is it. Am I truly being pulled to this? Or, is this real hesitation that right now isn't quite the right time? I will say right after my first daughter, at 4 months postpartum, I thought for sure that I was so ready to have another baby. And I was even like playing in my mind, like what if we had Irish twins? Or what if they were, within 18 months apart in age? I know for a fact my body was not ready during that time, which was good because it was shortly after that I started having all of the kidney stone issues. And then once I was able to kind of get over that kidney stone recovery, then I had a really intentional and deliberate 3-month prep before getting pregnant with that second baby. And at that point, it's like, okay, I know that I felt so ready. During that 3-month prep, I was like, I really wish we could just get pregnant. But at the same time, it didn't feel quite like it was our time. And I will also say, like, getting ready to get pregnant with this third baby, I felt like I probably could have got pregnant right after my son turned 1. And my husband was definitely not ready at that point. And that is definitely something to consider and talk through with your partner, is your whole family's plan and making sure that everybody is on board. And maybe this might be a little bit of a tangent, but I hear both sides of the coin where, well, it's mom's body, mom gets to make that final decision, versus we really need to take into account dad's thoughts and timing and consideration. I have learned, and I'm still actively learning this, but the more kids you have, the more hands-on dad has to be. And the more of a life change it is for dad, the more kids that you have. So let me explain this. With one baby, and especially if you are breastfeeding, mom truly is like the primary caregiver, right? Mom is feeding, you're up feeding all night. Baby wants mom most of the time. Mom is doing a lot with the baby. When you have your second, now mom's with the baby, dad has to be very hands-on with that toddler. And I've talked with a few other moms too, and I think this is actually a thing. But the transition from 0 to 1 is likely a bigger transition for mom because your whole world is changing. But the transition from 1 to 2 is a bigger transition for dad because now he has to be on a whole lot more than he was with that first baby. And I would say that just continues if you're going from 2 to 3. Chances are mom's going to have the baby and dad's going to have to take the 2 other kids for, a lot of things here and there. And so that's in part why, like I said, getting pregnant with this third baby, me and my husband did disagree on that timeline initially. And ultimately, I've come to accept that, 1, we got pregnant when we were supposed to. I absolutely believe that. And I know he is going to go through a very big change when this third baby comes. For me, honestly, I didn't feel like there was a huge change when I went from 1 to 2. And I'm not expecting a huge change when I go from 2 to 3. But I know it's going to be a big change for dad. So definitely take that into account when you are considering or getting ready for another pregnancy. If you are in this phase and you're trying to be like, okay, am I truly ready? Am I showing these signs? Here are some action steps that you can follow. First, you should be tracking your cycle for a few months and note your ovulation signs, your luteal phase length, and any irregularities. Are you getting hormonal migraines at the same time throughout your cycle? Are you spotting a day or 2 early or around ovulation? Just note any irregularities that you might have. Second thing, it will always be helpful to get some baseline labs pulled before trying to conceive. So getting a full iron panel, a full thyroid panel, and looking at your vitamin D status. And again, knowing what's optimal, not just what's considered the normal reference range. That can be really helpful before getting pregnant, especially knowing that pregnancy is going to deplete those nutrients. So knowing where you're starting from and if you need to have a little bit more support in those areas before getting pregnant is just going to help with those pregnancy nutrient levels. Another step is to do an honest energy audit for 1 to 2 weeks. Truly, take a look. Are you running on empty most days? Do you crash? Do you have to have caffeine to make it through the day? Or do you have to have 2 or 3 cups of caffeine to make it through the day? Do an honest energy audit and see where you're at for a couple of weeks. Next, I want you to kind of sit with that intuition question. You don't have to put pressure on yourself to answer it immediately, but what's your mother's intuition telling you? Are you ready for another baby? Do you need a little bit more time to prepare? And that's okay. There's no pressure on this answer. Just kind of think about it and ponder it for a couple of weeks. If you don't have an answer, give it some time. It doesn't have to be immediate. And then if you do feel like something is off in your body, even if you've had the labs done and things are normal, considering functional testing before trying for another baby can be really insightful. Looking at those tests that are more so showing what's actually happening in your body over time, not just at, a single point of a blood draw. The functional testing we do in Nourished Moms Collective includes looking at your minerals, looking at your gut, and looking at your functional hormones. So that could be a next step if you feel like you want to optimize these areas or you want real answers instead of guessing before another pregnancy. You can learn more at nourishedmomscollective.com. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about how my own second pregnancy felt so much harder, why I think that is, and what I recommend focusing on instead if you are preparing for another pregnancy.